Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Kalicube Tuesdays. Today we're here with Colin Shaw talking about UX and CX. Customer experience is key. I really like that title because I'm curious to dig into the difference between users and customers.
Good.
And from what I understand, your approach is pretty philosophical.
Yes and no, but carry on.
So
We're
it's
going
a
to have a good
philosophical
debate, aren't
approach.
we?
Yeah, philosophical approach with practical and pragmatic application. So what I'm hoping is you're going to help me to help my company and my team help our customers and treat users and customers in the way that they, let's say, should, or we could best treat them, let's say. We always start off with a song.
Okay.
Brilliant. A quick hello and we're good to go. Welcome to the show, Colin Shaw.
Excellent. I thought you said it was going to be a song.
Oh, that was very rude. That's a terrible start to the show. The guest insults the host, and usually it's the other way around. So thank you very much for being here, Colin. We always start off with a brand SERP as well. So that's my thing. So I look up people on Google. Colin Shaw, doing very well with a very popular name. You still come up. It wasn't directly you. It was a See Results About. But that's a great knowledge panel with your books attached to you. With I've seen Jay Bayer attached to you as a people also search for. You're obviously well understood by Google through your books, Google Books, but it also understands who are relevant other people within your industry. Does that list at the bottom look fair to you?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does. Yeah. What it shows, though, is I've changed weight over the years, doesn't it? Because all of the pictures are different shapes.
Right, very good. And that's an interesting point about the brand SERP is those pictures used to just be on mobile, and so people didn't really pay that much attention. Now they're appearing much more on desktop, and there's a standardization that is necessary. And one thing that's interesting there is what Google will do is it will group pictures by their similarity, and potentially if the weight difference was significant enough for Google to notice, it might actually be grouping them according to the weight and then choosing the most representative image from that group. That's how it works with images for people and within knowledge panels. It groups what it considers to be similar images. Now, I would be really interested. Now you've got me excited. I want to dig down and find all the different photos and compare them and see if Google is grouping them that way or if it isn't yet that subtle.
Yes. No. Well, there you go. I mean, that's one of the challenges. I noticed the second one down as well as when I used to have hair as well. So.
Oh right. Oh yeah. I've never had that problem because I started shaving my head when I was 23 years old. And well, the other thing is you could actually claim the knowledge panel. Right now, you don't have an entity home, a website that represents you or a web page that represents you. So you'd have to go through that whole big long form. We looked at that with Olga a few weeks ago. So claimable knowledge panel, lots of information about you, all very accurate. And then I looked up your podcast and came up with your book and your podcast, which is the next slide.
Right.
There you go. That looks pretty good as well. I mean, you've got the book, which is obviously Google Books. That's relatively, it's a given, but you've got your podcast boxes, which means you've actually set the podcast up correctly. And at the bottom, you can see results about. Last October, Google updated their algorithms to provide knowledge panels for podcasts, whereas before it was very difficult to get one. As of October, pretty much, if you set up your podcast correctly, you will get a knowledge panel for that podcast. I didn't expect the book. Should I read it?
Well, we're going to be talking some of the concepts and the theories about that today, I think. But how could I say no? Don't read it. I mean, you know, when you write a book, it's like saying, "Do you like your children?" Basically.
Oh, that's true. I like my book, which is behind me. That was my quick plug for myself. And before we start talking and digging into UX is dead, long live CX, customer experience is key, which I'm terribly keen on. Let's just show the sponsors really quickly, the video, which is WordLift. But before that, join me every Tuesday with an exciting and interesting guest on Kalicube Tuesdays. And here we go. Yes, we've got a groovy guest every week on Kalicube Tuesdays. Absolutely awesome. We're over 100 episodes on Kalicube Tuesdays and 200 on with Jason Barnard, the podcast, always produced in partnership with Wordlift, the artificial intelligence you need to grow your traffic. And this week, we're going to announce something really interesting to do with Google over there on the left, and that is the Kalicube logo on the right, the Falcon Get Your Own Knowledge Panel done for you service by Kalicube. We started offering that as of a few weeks ago. We make and build knowledge panels and correct knowledge panels and improve knowledge panels and stabilize knowledge panels for clients directly, which I'm terribly enthusiastic and keen on. You don't need our help, Colin. You've got a great knowledge panel already.
Good. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
Brilliant. So, customer experience. Why are you focusing so much on customers as opposed to users? I mean, as a web person, I didn't really do business before doing the web. Sure. I think of users, not of customers, and I think now you're going to tell me that's foolish.
Well, I wouldn't say it was. I wouldn't say it was foolish, and some of this is semantics. I think the actual important word to focus on is experience. Okay, right. And why then focus on customers? Well, customers at the end of the day are the people that pay our wages, and that whether you're in a B2B or B2B2C or whatever, then by definition, customers are important to you. And I think that what a lot of organizations don't do, and I don't think UX does, is it really looks at the word experience. And what I mean by that is, when you start to think about from a very, much more top level, what is a user experience or what is a customer experience, you need to sort of get into how I would break it down is into 4 bits. So the first bit is the sort of the rational stuff. Okay. So in other words, what you are doing, what the customer is doing, all that sort of left brain stuff that businesses have focused on for a long time. You've then got the emotional stuff. So that's, well, how is the customer feeling? Okay. So when they are using whatever it is that, on the web, whatever it may be, how are they feeling about those things? And emotions drive our behavior. The third element that's within that sort of phrase experience is the whole area of the subconscious. So the subconscious is, it's a bit like if I said to you, think about the fact that you're breathing. Okay. And now that I've said that you're breathing, you're thinking, oh yes, I'm breathing in and I'm breathing out. Okay. You weren't conscious of it before, but you were doing it before. Right. So it could be the colors that you've used, and I'm sitting there pointing there because I'm looking at your book. Yeah. It could be the colors that you're using. It could be the images that it could be the background. It could be the fonts. All of those send messages subconsciously to us. Okay.
But sorry, it's subconscious from the recipient as opposed to subconscious from me, because all of this is conscious.
Well, so yes and no. So it's subconsciously received. Okay. So I'm receiving messages from you, whether you have meant those messages for me to be received is a different kettle of fish. Whether the message. So here's the key word: are they deliberate? So is your experience deliberate? So if you think about the word deliberate, think about the word liberate. Liberate means everything's sort of free. Yeah. Deliberate means it's specific. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So is the specific thing that you are doing giving the right message? So it could be, for instance, and let me give you an example. I go into a bank and they put pens on chains. So that subconsciously tells me they don't think I'm going to
steal it. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that really what they want me to think and feel at that point? Do they really want me to mistrust them? That they think that that I'm going to steal things? And obviously it's not, but that's because they haven't thought about the subconscious. And then the last aspect of it is the whole area of behavioral science or psychology, which is effectively understanding why we human beings do what we do. So why do we do what we do? Why do we say one thing and then do another? So for instance, Disney know when they ask their customers what they want to eat at a theme park, Disney know that people say they'd like to have an option of a salad. Disney also know that people don't eat salads at theme parks. They eat hot dogs and hamburgers. So what a customer may say that they want, and this is the irony, is not necessarily what they will, what they really want. Yeah. So it's those four things that add up into this phrase experience. And then you can debate around the difference between a customer and a user. A user for me is more, it's a bit like, we did some work once with one of the airlines, okay? And it's interesting, they call their customers passengers, okay?
Oh, I was thinking about that. Literally, I was flying on British Airways the other day, and they were calling us customers.
Yes. So that starts to go down into the way that organizations think about their customers. So this airline we were working with actually they didn't call them customers, they didn't call them passengers, they called them self-loading freight. Yeah. So that,
but not to their face.
No, but internally they called it self-loading freight. Okay. Now that starts to give you an insight to the way that the organization looks at their customers or their passengers. And it gives you an insight to the culture of the organization. So again, I've done another work for organizations where they wouldn't call them customers, they would call them clients. Because
now,
clients,
what's the difference between customers and clients?
Yeah, so it has more connotations of being a more personalized service. So if you think of the word client, it sort of conjures up pictures of more sort of individual service rather than a customer, which tends to be sort of a B2C. Now, all of these things are, let me be clear, none of, suddenly changing the word from passenger to or users to customers is not going to change everything overnight, but it's the lens that you look at things through. So it's taking all the things that you talk about, but looking at them through, well, how does the customer see those things? And what effect does that have on the customer? And is that deliberate? Go back to that word deliberate. Do you mean to have that effect upon them or not? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does all make total sense. I mean, coming back to my British Airways experience, I mean, literally 3 days ago, I was sitting on the plane thinking, that's very strange. The pilot just called us customers.
Right.
And generally speaking, it's passengers. And what I would guess is that if the hierarchy then says to the pilot and the cabin staff, call them customers.
Yeah.
Does that not change their attitude towards the people they're dealing with?
It's one of the little.
So you're saying it doesn't happen overnight, but it's one way to change people's perspective is the words you're using and the meaning of those words.
Correct. It's one of the little things amongst the multitude of things that you have to do to change the way that an organization looks at things. I've written 7 books on this subject. Okay, the second book we talked about customer centricity. Okay, so it depends really whether what I would call whether you look at things from an inside out perspective or an outside in perspective. So inside out means you're dealing here within your organization, the customer's behind you, you're just worried about efficiency, process, and you occasionally go, okay, Mr. Customer, do you want to buy this? Or do you look at what the customer wants and what they truly want, and then bring that back into the organization to provide that? Okay.
Right. Well, here's a question, because if I obviously think, like, okay, I want to look at the customer or the client, ask them what they want, and then or find out what they want and bring it in. And they ask them what they want is that Disney thing. Because if I ask them what they want, they're probably going to say something different to what they actually do want. So what's a pragmatic way of actually figuring out what it is they want, what they will react positively, so that I can integrate it into my business?
Yeah, so good question. So there are 2 or 3 ways. One of the best ways is doing research with them, but doing some, but looking into it from a different perspective. There's a whole area you can Google this called structural equation modeling. Okay, which basically means that you're looking at causation rather than correlation. So I don't want to get too technical here, but it's a different way of most forms of research are done through correlation. One of the best ways,
just in SEO, that's one of the things that comes up all the time, along with it depends, is that causation or correlation?
Yes, correct.
Because it's a huge question with Google. You don't, I mean, it's really, really difficult to understand what is causing which, because there are so many parameters all intermixed.
Yes. The second part then for me is, and this is the great part of being in the business you're in, which is looking at what customers do, not looking at what they say. Okay. And obviously,
like not eating salads.
Yeah, correct. Well,
I think it's a great example because it is so true.
Yeah, no, it is. And you know, if you think about, I mean, I was actually doing, I did a webinar a little while ago with Google. Okay. And they were talking about they were talking about search. And again, I'm sure this is an area you know far more about than I do. But when they were talking about search, they were talking about the intent of what the user is putting in the little bar, and what I put in the little bar, the search bar, and what I actually want are different things. And therefore, obviously, you can then see where it comes. Therefore, this is where you start getting all of the various different suggestions of what you may want. Okay. But the point I'm trying to get to is it's looking at what the customer is doing. Now, the important thing here, Jason, is then being able to look at it through the lens of behavioral science. So in other words, being able to look at it and turn around and say, the customer is doing this at this point because of that. Okay. You know, let me give you another example that may help. We're having some work done around the house. Okay. And I don't know about you, but whenever I have work done around the house, I always get 3 quotes. I never go for the most expensive. I never go for the cheapest. I always go for the one in the middle. Okay. And that's called extremeness aversion. Okay. Human beings don't like extremes. We always tend to naturally, and it's a thing called a heuristic. Okay. A heuristic is like a rule of thumb. Okay. So we tend to go for the thing that's in the middle when we don't sort of understand what the options are. So never go for the most expensive, never go for the cheapest, always goes for the one in the middle, typically. Okay. But it's the point I'm trying to make is it's looking at life through that lens. Does that make sense? So you're looking at your data through that lens.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people kind of, the idea of safety is that thing in the middle. The idea of safety is doing things that I've already done or working with a company I've already worked with who are okay, which comes back to the idea of customers and clients and long term, is saying, if I can look at it from your perspective, give you a great experience, then I'm going to keep you. And if I can't do that, I won't.
Yeah. But so you're interesting because you said a few things there that were interesting. One is what a lot of that is driven by is trust.
Right.
So, you know, you've built trust with those people over a period of time. Okay. And therefore don't underestimate that, we said 4 parts: rational, emotional, subconscious, psychological, the power of being able to trust somebody. So I will pay more money. I don't. One of the reasons I don't go with the cheapest is because I'm not sure if I can trust it. You know.
Yeah.
So we, you know, in all the research we've done, customers will tell you that the thing that's one of the most important things to them is price. It never is. I'm not saying price is unimportant, but it's never the most important thing. You know, trust is one of the key motivators in dealing with any of your clients, and and retaining them. You know, if you just even think of the word loyalty, okay, loyalty. You know, so well, let me ask you a question. Who are the people in your life that you are most loyal to? Who would you say?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. The tables have been turned. I'm most loyal to my oldest friends, the people I was in a band with who were actually good to be in a band with, because being in a band with other people is like being married to people you don't even like. And the ones you end up after 6 years in a band with them and you still are their great friend, you're great friends. I would be loyal to the end of my life with this guy because I've lived with him in this band, creative situation for 6 years. My daughter, my ex-wife, I would always be loyal to my ex-wife from a human perspective. So I don't know where that question's going, but that's my list.
So the point I'm trying to make is loyalty is an emotional attachment. So in business, we tend to talk about customer loyalty, and we tend to sort of come at it from the perspective of that means the customer gives us all their business. Okay. But when you think about true loyalty, loyalty is built up over a period of time. One of the fundamental tenets of loyalty is trust. Okay. And loyalty is an emotional attachment. It also means that you may have read one of my heroes, a guy called Stephen Covey, wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm showing my age now. But one of the things he talks about is the fact that we all have an emotional bank account. Okay. So I'm sure with your friends, with your kids, your wife, your ex-wife, so on and so forth, you've built up an emotional bank account. In other words, they've put deposits into that account, so you're in credit. Do they do things that annoy you? Yeah, they do. Do they sometimes have to make withdrawals from that credit? Yes, they do. But you never get down to a minus level with them. Okay?
No, I worked with a client who told me that story. He didn't tell me where he got it from. Now I know where he got it from. And it's as if you go below 0, you're out.
Correct. So if you're treated as if you treat your customers as if they are a transaction and they are there to be processed, and you don't build any emotional attachment with them, when something goes wrong, you go somewhere else because you've not built up any emotional attachment. I'm sure with some of your clients, they have built up an emotional attachment with you. And if you suddenly turn around and say, hey, I've been ill for 3 days and I can't do this work and I'm sorry, but it's going to be delayed by whatever it may be. They would turn around and say, that's fine. Don't worry about it, Jason, you know, because you've built up that level of confidence, trust and loyalty with them over a period of time. So it's understanding that customers are human beings, and going back to the subject of this talk, they're not just users, because users gives me that implication of I'm just there as a user and I'm not important. That's a transactional word, and I'm not a user. I'm not even a human being. I just use this. You know, it's like I'm a machine.
I think for me, sorry, that's the thing you said that really has just gone. Oh, right, 100% user sounds. It sounds so unattached and functional. Very, very good word.
Functional is a good word. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said it. Sorry.
No, you said functional. I'll let you have that as your word. But functional is a very good word.
That's my glory moment. Customer, client, and actually building up the relationships. Now the huge question for me here is, how do I do that? Because it's such a massive investment of time that I don't necessarily have. I mean, if I actually want to make money and grow my business, how can I build a relationship without spending vast amounts of time and therefore resources on that relationship? I mean, obviously, I'm asking for the cheap and easy way to figure this out.
Sure.
Are you saying you just have to invest the money and the time and the effort you need to?
So the first thing I would say to you is, you're clearly doing it already, because you wouldn't be successful if you weren't. Okay.
Right.
So you're clearly doing a number of things. If you've got long-term customers, you're clearly doing it already. All right. The second thing I would suggest is, for me, I would encourage you to go, what's the experience that I am trying to deliver to my customers? Okay. Who do I really want to focus on? You know, so you don't necessarily have to do this with every single customer, because you may not be able to afford to do it. But when you're talking about building a relationship, I mean, what does it mean? It means talking to a customer. Well, just think about, and this is where I don't see this as being rocket science. Think about what you do with your kids and your friends. What do? You stay in touch with them. You don't just talk about work. You talk about, well, what type of weekend you have.
Yeah.
You know, what type of issues have you got? Is there any way that I can help? It's not just about business. It's also about taking care of that human aspect of things. Now, I'm not saying you can do that with every single customer.
No, but so one thing that did strike me is about kids, is that you're always there to support. You're always there to help. And my daughter is now grown up and gone away.
Sure.
I don't communicate with her every day, but she knows that if she calls me, I will be there.
Sure.
And that's a similar kind of mindset that one would therefore need. And one of the reasons we had you on the show is that I don't do this as well as I think we should do this. And Kalicube needs to up its game. And one thing is that we're building a subscription model. And with subscriptions, you're looking at long term, and you really do need to be looking at relationships. And it's something we're not doing very well. I mean, I'm not talking about the team. The team is brilliant. I'm doing a very bad job of actually building this into the process.
Sure. But some of that relationship, I mean, one of the ways that you can build a relationship is just doing what you're doing now, which is, you know, using video, communicating, being open, you know, all those things add towards that. Absolutely. If you're building a subscription model, then by definition, that is a longer term basis. You know, understanding therefore what your customers really want is important.
Yeah, and we've got a platform called Kalicube Pro. I mean, at the beginning, I was saying we've got this done for you service. The done for you service is basically us as an agency using the platform I built.
Right.
And one of the problems we've had with the platform is I've let other people use it and they don't use it very effectively.
Sure.
And that's because the platform isn't clear, because it's built under my logic.
Sure.
And one thing I need to do is onboard people much better, so that they're comfortable moving forwards, and provide little snippets of video that explain all the things they need to do.
Yeah, and for me, I would be asking them what they see as the issues are, and then address those in some videos and stuff like that. Because again, how you see that platform and how somebody naive like me would see the platform may be completely different, a different kettle of fish. But it's you know, for me, it's the key is not about the what, it's also about the how. So the what is the platform, if you like, in this conversation, or the task. How you go about doing that is the interesting bit, and where there is a lot of value that gets left. Let me give you an example. We used to get our milk delivered. Okay.
Oh, I remember that back in the day. I'm showing my age now.
Yeah, absolutely. Used to get our milk delivered. We were one of the very last people that stopped getting our milk delivered. Now, why did we stop getting milk delivered? Well, we were having the milk delivered, and I said to Lorraine, my wife, you know, let's not get milk delivered and go down the grocery store and buy it like everybody else. And she said, no. She said, Kevin comes around on a Friday night. He's been coming around for a number of years. We have a bit of a laugh and a joke. And you know, I don't want to leave getting the milk from him. That's fine. Okay. Anyway, Kevin leaves, milk sales decline. Kevin leaves, pass it over to a new guy. A new guy comes along, and he effectively goes, There's a much more efficient way of us doing this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the how much milk and the receipt underneath the milk bottle, and I then want you to leave a check somewhere safe. Okay. He immediately has wiped out the value. The value was in the conversation, and we were paying more money for the conversation on a Friday night, in essence. And because that wasn't efficient, and because he come at this from just a transactional perspective, we are obviously, after 2 months, we might as well just go down the road, because it's just a commodity milk, and he lost out on what was really the value, and the value was in that conversation.
Right, really, really, really good story to end this on. You felt like the used user as opposed to a valued customer or a valued long-term client.
Good way of describing
by the milkman. Thank you so much, Colin. That was absolutely awesome. I got loads out of that, and I'm going to go away and reshape my business, reshape my approach, and start actually doing things that my customers and my clients want, as opposed to what I think they might want. We're now going to introduce next week. We've got Passing the Baton. Next week it's Meredith Kallaher, excuse me. The conversion copywriting framework that will make your life so much easier. I really want to learn now to write conversion copywriting so that I can get the clients and customers and make them happy and keep them on board for long-term subscriptions. Could you pass the baton, please, Colin?
Yes, Meredith, I really hope you have a good conversation next week. Copywriting is absolutely key. I've brought along a baton for you to have. I will send this in the post to you, or in fact, it looks like I should be holding it in a certain way. There you go.
Yep.
Here's the baton. Have a really good conversation. I think it will be a great call.
Brilliant. I'm glad you didn't pull that out earlier, because I would have thought you were going to beat me up with it. A quick goodbye to end the show. Thank you, Colin, and see everyone next week. Thanks, Colin. Kalicube. It's all about your brand.